Hey everyone, it's Jill the Wandering Stamper. I hope you're having a fabulous day today. I am wearing shorts for a change. It's actually warm enough in Florida for that right now, which is nice because we'll be leaving in a month to head north where it's much cooler. So I'm enjoying all of this warm weather as long as I can. Today we are making a super cool interlocking accordion card. I've always avoided this card because it uses 12 by 12 paper, which I don't keep in my stamp room because space is an issue when you RV full-time. So I always have 8.5 by 11. So I finally just sat down and figured out how to do this with 8.5 by 11. And since most of you probably use that size paper, I wanted to show you how to do it as well. And to make it even better, we're going to be using the Friends of the Ocean Designer Series paper. I think it might be my all-time favorite Designer Series paper with Stampin' Up! And then of course the coordinating dies and stamps called Ocean Friends. So I'm going to take a moment to turn down the camera and we'll get started on this super cool card. Thanks for joining me today. Let's start out showing off these great products. So this is the Ocean Friends stamp set. I love this stamp set. It's so cute with the little crabs and the lobsters. These could be crawfish as well. And then there's some bubbles and some sea grass and coral. And then of course, my stamps are all sticking together because I didn't put my sheet on top. Stamps are fabulous. They're well loved. I do lots of red. And just so you know, red ink does stain them, but it's fine. It doesn't bleed onto any other stamps. And then of course the coordinating dies. Now I have mine on magnets, but I love that they give you some waves, which you can use as borders on other cards. And then you've got your crab, your lobster, your seagrass, and then I love this really big coral. It cuts out and textures the coral, so it makes a really good die for layering things. And then of course you have these cute little flowers. Actually they're starfish, but they also make cute little flowers, so I use them for both, sometimes on other cards. So that is that. And then I think, in my opinion, the star of the show is the Designer Series paper. Sadly, I thought I had a brand new pack and I don't, so I just ordered 2 more packs because I make a lot of cards with this, but this Designer Series paper may possibly be one of my favorite papers. It is so vivid and bright and happy and playful and fun. I just love it, and I love the back as well. You can use the back for so many other things. Oh, and by the way, the dies will cut out these lobsters and crabs. So you can use the dies or you can fussy cut, so you have options. But I love this paper, and of course a lot of my paper is not in this pack because I've used it all up. So I will be ordering some more for sure. Look at this background paper. Gorgeous, gorgeous paper. Love it. So there's some other patterns as well, but as I said, I've used some of the patterns up. I've got to order another pack. So we're going to be using these 2 patterns today. Look, just scraps. We'll be using these 2 patterns, and I'm going to pair them with Lemon Lime Twist, Calypso Coral, because I'm out of Summer Splash. But Summer Splash and Coastal, what is this? Coastal Cabana, what did I say? Yeah. Coastal Cabana and Summer Splash are kind of similar enough that I can use Coastal Cabana since I just ran out of Summer Splash. I have an order coming in today, so I will be getting some more of that paper. And then, of course, we have Calypso Coral. So these 3 colors are going to look beautiful, and we'll also be using some basic white. I also pulled out some ribbon. I think this is retired, but it's Lemon Lime Twist, and I liked how it was swirly because it kind of looks like seagrass. But you could use white, you could use, whatever color floats your boat. And then I'm on a roll to use up some retired things, so I'm also going to use, I'm pretty sure these may be retired, but maybe not, but I'm going to be using some sequins that match as well. Just trying to free up my stamp space because the new catalog will be coming out in May, and I want to have lots of room for new products. So let's get started on making this card. Now, there's a lot of steps. Well, not really. There's not a lot of steps. It's a little bit time consuming, but I did some of the prep work ahead of time so that this video won't be hours long, hopefully. All right, so we're going to start out with a card base, and I'm going to make my base in Calypso Coral. So you're going to need 2 pieces. Now, originally, I've seen this card done as on 12 by 12 paper. I don't carry 12 by 12 paper. I just don't have room for it. I have all of the 8.5 by 11s but I just don't have room in my stamp room for 12 by 12. So I usually avoid cards that need 12 by 12, but I found that this card can be adapted. So happily I can make it. So we're gonna start out with 5.5 by 8. This is an 8.5 by 11 card, or piece of cardstock. So I'm just gonna cut a 1/2 inch off the end to make it 8. All right, and then we're going to score it at 4 inches. All right, and I'm going to set that aside. And then I'm going to need a second piece that's 5.5 by 8.5. So that ends up being exactly 5.5. So now, and of course it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So I don't have to do anything else to this piece except for score it. So we're going to score it at 4 inches and 8 inches, or you're going to score at the 1/2 inch line on this side. So basically, so 4 and 8, that way you have a 1/2 inch section on the end. All right, so we're going to set that aside, and let's deal with that. Well, actually, you're also going to need, I'll show you what you're going to need. That'll be easier. This out of the way. So this is your main base. All right. And then you're going to need 2 strips for the middle, and I chose the Coastal Cabana, and those strips are going to be 3.25 by 8.5, which is this piece, and I've scored it at 2 3/4 inches, 5.5 inches, and that's it. Actually, this is the 3.25 by 8.5. Sorry about that. So you're going to, again, 3.25 by 8.5, you're going to score it at 2 3/4 and 5.5, okay? And then you're going to take a second piece of cardstock, 3.25 by 9 inches, and you're going to score at 2 3/4, 5.5, and 8.5. So again, you have that little 1/2 inch margin, okay? So those are the 2 main pieces for the base. All right, so what you're going to want to do is, once you have these 2 pieces cut, I usually will just kind of fold this little 1/2 inch strip so I can see it better. And you could use Stamp and Seal Plus, Stamp and Seal. You want to use something strong. I'm just going to use my liquid glue. I have made this card with Stamp and Seal Plus. That works out as well. So now I'm just going to take my 8 inch piece that we scored in the middle at 4 inches, and I'm just going to attach this. You don't want to go over the score line. You want to just go right up to the edge of the score line, and that's so that it folds nicely. Okay, and then give that a good press. So now you have a piece of paper perfectly long enough, and this seam is not going to show. So that's what I love about this card, because the original cards I was seeing, they used a 12-inch sheet of paper and then used a 4.5 inch piece of cardstock and attached it here. So I just decided to cut it in the middle and do it this way. All right, so now that you have that, you're gonna just have to make some decisions. To make this interlocking card, you've got to, we're gonna be putting a hole in the middle 2 panels, and we want to use something that's wide enough for this to pass through easily. So it could be any shape you want, a square, a rectangle, it could be something out of the stylish shapes like that little, I call it a coffin shape, that little shape that looks like it could be a coffin. That works as well. I'll show you a sample that I used with that. But I have grabbed 2 sizes of my stitched rectangles dies, because that's what I have on hand and it worked well for me. Okay, so you're going to start out with your smaller of your 2 dies. My bigger die is attached to something because I'm going to show it to you in a minute, but I wanted to kind of walk you through what you have to do. So the 2 middle panels, there's 4 panels, 1, 2, 3, 4. The 2 middle panels are going to be cut out, okay? So the first thing you want to do is take your smaller, if you're using a rectangle, your smaller of your rectangle, so your smaller of the 2 shapes, and you're going to center it. And if you're really meticulous, go ahead and measure and find your center. I just kind of eyeball it. And then I get my, all right, I had all my pieces out. Then I get my Post-it cover up and labeling tape. Love this stuff. and I just tape it down, okay? Make sure it's all even, and then I run it through my die cutter, okay? And then I do the exact same thing after that one's cut over here. I center this perfectly, as close as I can to center, tape it down, run it through my die cutter, okay? So once you've done that with your smaller shape, you're left with this, okay? That card's gonna be made later. So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4 panels still, but the 2 middle ones have cutouts. And so this is where these pieces of paper are going to pass through. So the next thing that you want to do is you want to decide what kind of designer series paper you want, and you're going to cut 4 of those. And those are going to be cut at 3 3/4 by 5 1/4 inches. Okay, so I have 4 of those, and they fit on each one of these panels. Okay, just like that. So what I'm going to show you is how to get this. All right, actually it goes over here. So what you do is you're going to place your paper down and center it as best you can, and then you're just like you did before, you're going to tape it down just like this, okay? And then once you tape it down, you're going to flip it over. Here, let's use this. We're going to pretend. All right, so you're going to put this in the middle as close as you can, and then you're going to tape it down just like you did before. Now, one thing I like to do, I just dropped my paper. Let me grab that before we lose it. I like to mark which is up and what side this is on. This is the left side, this will be my right side, okay? So tape it down, get it in the center, and then flip it over. And you can tape both of these down at the same time. So you can tape them both down and then flip them over. And then you're going to take your pencil and you're going to trace all the way around this. And you want to do it dark enough so you can see it, okay? So you're going to do that for both pieces. Then you can take this off and you're going to flip it over and you're going to grab your shape. So let's just pretend. Okay, you're going to grab your shape, and here's my line that I drew with my pencil. Okay, and I'm going to center my larger shape around that pencil line. So this has about 1/8 of an inch. This one's about 1/8 of an inch, or maybe a little bit bigger than the first die I used. Okay, so once that's centered around my edge and it all looks straight, tape it down, and I'm going to run it through the cutter. And you're going to do that for both pieces. Okay, so then when you're done, you take your tape, you can erase these little marks, and these can be used for something else. I'm going to set those aside. So see, as you can see, I used a small and a big. And just the most important thing is you want your paper to go move freely through the small one. Okay, so now we've got 2 pieces that are solid and 2 pieces that are cut. And remember, I marked them left and right, so I know which is which. So now we're going to go back over to our base, and we're going to lay these out. So this was the one I marked left, and as you can see, it works out perfectly. And then this is the one marked right. So what I'm going to do is just glue these in place. Now, I may have turned this around while I was talking to you. You don't really have that happen when you're not doing a video, but yeah, that's the way it goes. Okay, so if it helps you, if you think you might make that mistake, just put a little up arrow right there. That way it reminds you which side of the paper is up, and you'll know which direction to have your cardstock, because it looks different. It looks the same both directions. All right, so now that this is cut, we have this. See how nice that looks? So I'm going to go ahead and grab my silicone craft sheet. And I'll show you, I also have the Misty, and I am going to be using that today, and I'll show you what that is as well. If you do a ton of stamping, especially if you sell cards and you need them to be perfect, that Misty is a game changer. All right, so we have the 2 inside, and now we're simply going to add the 2 outside. Okay, so there is the inside of our base. Look how beautiful that is. All right, so now we have our inside panels that are going to go here, and we have our front. So let's go ahead and put this together, and then we will do some stamping, and at the time we do our stamping, we'll go ahead and work on the front of the card as well. So I'm doing the very same thing. I have 2 pieces, and one has that 1/2-inch tab. So the only thing you need to be mindful of is the 2 center panels are slightly wider than the 2 outside panels. So I just kind of line it up here and make sure I have the right side. So these two match up perfectly, so I know I'm right. So just make sure your 2 bigger squares are in the middle. All right, so I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to meet up to the very edge of the score line. You don't want to go over it because you want it to fold nicely. All right, so that's that. So now I have 2 pieces. I know I have 2 pieces. Here they are. 2 pieces of designer series paper that are going to go in the middle. And that's because when you put this card together, you don't really see what's on the middle, so I don't like to decorate it a lot because it kind of gets lost. So then these are going to go on the inside. Okay, so what we're creating is this. So as you can see, these 2 middle, you kind of get hidden a little bit, so that's why I don't decorate them. So now for each of these panels, we're going to be creating these scenes. So what I like to do is start out by stamping the crabs. So I know that 3 of these are going to get a crab, and then the one on the end is going to be where I'm going to write my message. So I'm not going to mess with that one yet. All right. So this is where the Misty comes in. I love this. And I also get this from My Sweet Petunia. I'm not an affiliate. I don't make money telling you about this, but I want to share it because it's a craft room tool that I love. And it's going to allow you to stamp more than once. So if you make a boo-boo or something doesn't come out good, or if you're doing like 2-step stamping, something like that, this comes in handy because you can lay out all your stamps ahead of time. So to create this, what I like to do is these are the pieces that are going to go at the bottom of this piece of paper, okay? And then I want to make my crab kind of a little bit hidden under the paper, and then his body on the outside. So basically like that. So what I like to do is lay him out the way I want him, and then I'm going to put this down. So now he's positioned, okay? And I can just move these out of the way, and he's positioned. So to create this card, I find I like to start with the background stamp and then grab the detail stamp. And the reason I'd like to do this is because I like to stamp off of, get these out of the way. I like to stamp off of the first color and then make the outline darker, all right? So we're gonna start out with the Calypso Coral. So I'm going to ink that up. And then I don't want it to be that dark, so I have a piece of scratch paper that I cut. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp it on the scrap paper, and then move it out of the way, and then stamp it on my cardstock, okay? And this allows me to get it lighter, but I didn't have to move it around because sometimes it doesn't line up well, right? So now that I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that to all my pieces, because why move the stamp and reposition when you don't have to? So this is a great time to use a chamois or a baby wipe to clean your cards. You don't want to have to take that stamp off. So I keep, look at this, really loved chamois handy, and I'm just going to wipe off my stamp And then I'm going to close up my Calypso Coral, and I'm going to grab the, I think I'm going to use Granny Apple Green for a little bit brighter. Instead of the Lemon Lime, well, let's use the Lemon Lime Twist. I used the Granny Apple Green on my other card, but let's try out the Lemon Lime Twist. Why not? So I'm going to go ahead and grab that same piece of scratch paper and stamp down, and then stamp down. Okay, so there's the second one. Look how pretty that is. It's very pretty. All right, and now I'm going to grab my chamois and wipe it off. Don't forget to wipe it off. A, you don't want to muddy up your stamp pad, and B, you just don't want to have an ugly impression because you didn't do the right color. So now I'm using the Melon Mambo, and a piece of paper would be good. And I'm going to put my cardstock there. I'm going to stamp off, move that out of the way, and stamp again, like that. All right, so those are my three, and I'm going to go ahead and wipe that Melon Mambo off. And now we already have the Melon Mambo out, so we're going to go ahead and put the background stamp away, and I'm going to grab the details. All right, and so all you have to do is line up the bottom legs down here, and the rest kind of falls in place. So I just, excuse my head, excuse my gray hairs. You may see them. I've earned them, so I'm not embarrassed about them. All right, let's see. I get that as close as I can, and then push down. All right, and so now I'm going to put my ink on full strength. Okay, just like that. Look how cool. Very cool. All right, so that one's done. Now, again, the chamois. And see now, since we kept our crabs in the same spot, everything's going to line up. So now I'm grabbing my Lemon Lime Twist. Going to ink that one up real good. There we go. It just makes it so much easier to plan ahead how you're going to stamp. Get everything lined up and use something like this, because you're not going to have to redo it because you messed it up. And if you didn't get a good impression, you have an opportunity to stamp one more time on it, or two or three or whatever it takes. All right, last one. So there we go. So all of our crabs are done. And I'm going to go ahead and wipe this off one more time. I always like to wipe my stamps off immediately. Otherwise, I'll forget I didn't wipe them off. And tragically, we can have a mess on our hands. All right, so that is the Misty. And I love this thing because it has a really strong magnet. I also purchased the little sticky sheet, so the paper sticks to this little sticky sheet. But if you don't have it, the magnet will hold your stuff down. And then you take the foam pad out if you're using the rubber stamps, because they're a little thicker than the photopolymer. So this thing is fabulous. I use it all the time. All right. Now that we have that done, you want to figure out how you want to lay out your crabs. So I think I'm going to, look at this. Thank goodness that's on the bottom of the paper. It's going to get covered up. All right, so that is how these are going on, just like that. So let's go ahead and put these two pieces down so they are out of the way. These are just simply going to get glued, and make sure they're in the right direction. Okay. I love these little starfish. They remind me of when we traveled to California and we were staying in, actually it was when we were up in Washington. We were staying in Mount Rainier, and we went on a hike that took us to some tidal pools. And the starfish in those tidal pools were insane. They were huge, as big as my hand, and they were vividly colored, like purple and magenta and blue, just purple. I mean, they were just the most amazing colors. I've never seen starfish like that. We don't get them like that, I don't think, in Florida. At least I've never seen one. So, this paper kind of reminds me of those starfish. They were hardy starfish. I have a picture of one that looked like it had a butt crack, excuse me, but it was really funny. It was kind of folded up so his little arms were up and his little legs were down, and there was a crack in the middle, and it reminded me of like something you'd see on SpongeBob. It just made me laugh. I'll never forget that. And I sent it to my kids, and they thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. So if you ever get a chance to go to Mount Rainier, make sure you do the hike on Ruby Beach, and go see. You have to go during low tide, very important. And check out the tide pools. Really cool. I should have my silicone craft sheet out. All right, that could have been bad. So I'm just putting one thin little stream of glue on this strip, and I'm just lining it up right above the other piece, so it just kind of looks artistic. All right, we are going to be heading to Colorado soon because I have a grandson coming, and we stay the first half of the summer in this little town called Lyons. It's at the base of the Rocky Mountains. It's beautiful. It's a little private campground. It's a county park, actually, and it's on a river, and the little town is completely walkable, so we don't have to drive anywhere. We could just walk around this little tiny mountain town, and they always have things going on. Really looking forward to that. Okay, so we've got these done. Now, we can leave them plain. I think they need a little something else. So I'm going to grab the bubble stamp, and I'm going to grab some Coastal Cabana, and we're just going to add some bubbles. So I'm going to just grab another random piece of scrap paper here, and we're just going to add some bubbles here and there, just like that. Just gives it a little bit more character. And last but not least, I think this card is going to have to go to all my July birthday friends. I'm a Cancer, and all of my friends that are also Cancers may have to get this card. I'm going to grab that last piece of cardstock that's for the message, and I'm going to add the bubbles because we can write right over top of those bubbles. So they're not very bright. So we'll just add some to that. All right, that's it for that. Let's move on. Okay, so these are done. So now we're going to put them onto our card just by gluing them down. I mean, this card is so cute. I don't know who I'm going to give it to. I might have to make a few more because if I give it to one person and another person sees it, they're going to want to know why they didn't get one too. So I have to be very careful about who I send some of these cards to. This is a really extra cool card. And it's not one that you're probably going to mass produce because it does take a little time. But if you do all your cutting and scoring and all of that together, and then you just sit and do assembly line assembly, then it's not so bad. But it does take a little bit more time than other folds. But it's totally worth it if you want to send somebody a special card. All right, and here's our last panel. Okay, so we're going to give this one a moment to dry, and we're going to work on the front of the card. So for the front of the card, I used the really cool, where did I put it? Here it is. These are the Soft Waves 3D embossing folder. I love this. It's really pretty, and you can actually brush a little color on if you wanted to. It's really cool, and it even looks cool on both sides. Like I sometimes use the more bumpy side. Sometimes I use the smoother side. Really cool. So this piece is 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. So it's just a little bit smaller than the front of our card. And then I just cut a square, 2 squares out of lemon lime twist and basic white, and I don't even remember how I did it because I just made it up. 3 1/4 by 3 1/4, and then 3 by 3. Okay, so I mean you can make whatever size you want. And then I also cut a strip of paper because I wanted to pull in the starfish designs. And so this is 1 1/2 inches by 3 3/4 inches. Okay, you can have a lot of fun with the front of this card. So we're going to go ahead and glue this on about 1 inch or so from the bottom. So I'm just going to add some liquid glue. I add a little bit more glue on these pieces that have been embossed because there's ridges, so there's areas that it might not attach to because of the bumps. So I always add a little bit of extra glue on those. All right, so just making sure that that's straight. All right, so that looks good. So now we want to create the front. So to create this front, let me get my scrap paper. I'm going to create a little bit of a seam. So I'm going to grab my granny apple green and my lemon lime twist. All right, so I'm going to start out with the lemon lime twist. Look at this. I have this little flake on here. If you ever get a hair or a little flake, take it off, because if you stamp, it's going to mess up your stamp. It's not going to mess up your stamp, it's going to mess up your stamping. All right, so I'm grabbing the seagrass, and I'm going to stamp that seagrass down just randomly here and there. Look how pretty this color is. All right, I'm going to do 2. Maybe I'll do one short one too, like that. Okay, and then I'm going to do a couple really light. So I'm going to stamp off and stamp on, and that just gives it a little bit more depth. Just like that. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to clean that off. And then remember I said there's a little seagrass. So here's our little piece of seagrass. So I'm going to mount that on a stamp. And I'm going to grab my granny apple green because I want it to be a little bit bolder. So I'm going to ink that up. And I'm going to add some seagrass. And I'm just going to do random heights here and there. Okay, because the ocean is just a mishmash, right? Just do that one right there. Okay, that's it for that. Really easy. Close this up. All right, and then before you came on, I die cut this little crab that I stamped him in Calypso Coral and die cut him on there. So we're going to go ahead and add him to the front, and I'm using these little tiny mini glue dots because guess what? I ran out of large ones. I could have sworn I had another pack, and I did not. So those are coming in today. I bought 3 packs, so I didn't run out again. So I've been having to use these little ones all week long, and I'm going to be really happy when the big ones come back. I can't believe I ran out of them. So here we go. Now I don't worry about the legs because it's fine. This card will be just fine without worrying about that. You know, before we put him down, let's go ahead and put a sentiment on this card. So here we have, hello friend. A lot of time I will go ahead and use my Misty and stamp that on as well so I don't mess up, but we're going to go ahead and be brave. I'm going to use that Melon Mambo. I'm going to ink it up, and I'm going to add that right here. Okay. All right. We were living dangerously and it paid off. Okay. Let's close this up. All right. So now that we have that on there, it's a little crooked, but it's not bad. We're going to go ahead and add our crab just like so. And now that he is on there, we can layer him onto our cardstock. I don't like to do the layering until I'm done stamping because if I mess up, I gotta flip it over and start over. There we go. So cute. All right. So you could add this on with dimensionals or just glue it down. I'm just gonna go ahead and glue it down because this is a bulkier card because of all the folds. It is going to probably cost you a little more postage to send, so I figured don't make it any worse than it already is. Or heavier. It's not really worse, but just heavier. All right, so there's the front. So let's put this all together. So we've got our base. All right, make sure everybody's facing the right way, and you're going to go ahead and fold this in. This is a great time to use your bone folder. Get that crease in there really nice. And then fold out. So we've got a valley and then a mountain and a valley. Okay? Give that a good crease so it sits up like this. All right. Now we're going to grab our second layer and we're going to fold it exactly the same because we want it all to go in the card the same way. So we've got a valley, a mountain, a valley, and this is where the accordion part in the name comes in, a mountain, and a valley. And the middle piece is supposed to stick out further, so don't let that make you think you did something wrong. All right, so there is that. So now we're going to put that in our card, and we're going to close up our card. So, and then we're going to center it in this hole, basically, essentially, that you've created. So you get it as close as you can to center, and then you're going to add your liquid glue. Make sure it's right side up. You don't want to put your card in there and upside down. That would be tragic. And then just close it. And I give it a little bit of a squish, and then I open it up real quick and make sure it looks good. And that looks good. So now we're going to do the exact same thing over here. We're going to, it should be good, so you just double check it. And then put your glue down. Or your Stampin' Seal Plus, that would be a good place to use Stampin' Seal Plus if anything were to be used, you know. All right, so there is, look at that. See how that sits up? Perfectly. How fun is it? It's just so fun. And you've got plenty of room to write here. All right, so now we want to attach the front. So I want to give it a closure because it does want to pop up. It is a very springy card. So I cut a nice long piece of this ribbon. You could also make a belly band. I'm not a big fan of belly bands personally, just because they add a lot of bulk, and when you display your card, they're just kind of sitting there. I do use belly bands, but not all the time. So what I like to do is I find the center point of my ribbon so that I don't have to do it once I'm ready to go. And then this is where I like to use some Stamp and Seal. Where's my Stamp and Seal hiding? I put it in a place I wouldn't forget to find it, and of course I forgot to find it. So this is a great way to use your Stamp and Seal because it's going to hold that ribbon in place. Just make sure you don't put it too close to the edge because you don't want it poking out when you put your layers on. Alright, so I've added my Stamp and Seal Plus, and now I'm going to just lay my ribbon. I've put a little crease where the middle is so I know where my ribbon goes. And now I'm just going to lay it across. Okay, so that's going to hold it. I don't worry about the back. I don't care about the back. It's fine. So there's our ribbon is down. All right, so now that that's down, I can go ahead and add my liquid glue. And I'm kind of generous again with the liquid glue when I have embossed paper because there's a lot of ridges in the paper and I want to make sure it catches good. All right, so now I'm just going to layer that on the front, and it's going to further hold that ribbon down for us. Whoops. Just like so. And if you want, you could actually open your card up a little bit to do that. Okay, now I've gotten a little glue down here, so I'm going to use my little eraser and get that little smear up because it's gonna, I don't want it sticking on things. All right, perfect. Now all we have to do is add a couple of embellishments. I've got these little, let's go ahead and tie it up so you can see how it looks tied. So I just tie a simple little bow, just like so. And now let's add some embellishments. So my other sample, I used the orange ones. I think for this one, I'm gonna use the pink. So I'm gonna put one here and then put some down here. Green would look fun too. Iridescent would look great. So there we go. All right, let's get some of this mess out of here so I can show you the other samples. So here's our card. How cute is it? This makes the funnest little card to send somebody. You open it up, it sits up perfectly on the counter. You've got plenty of room to write. And look how happy and bright and cheerful it is. Love this card. So there's our first sample. Here's one I made earlier. I pretty much made it the same way. I used a different piece of designer series paper inside. I used up that paper, which is why we have a different piece for this card. Let me show you what else I made. This card came out really cute. This is the brand new Grow with Love Stamps and Dies. I did this on Calypso Coral and Mossy Meadow. And then I used some thick, I don't even know, natural ribbon. I'm not even sure what it's called. I do believe it's still available. I love the heft of it, and it looked earthy because this is a stamp set with herbs. So it's basil, rosemary, mint, and thyme. And the dies create a seed packet, and it's so cute. I love this, and I'm going to be making some spring cards with this. The dies are fantastic. So I added some embellishments, but look at the inside. How cute is that? I used the Simply Plaid, what is that? What is this called? Timeless Plaid paper. I love this designer series paper, and it worked out perfectly with this card, and I just used I used the reverse side for the middle. And I die cut all of my herbs. It's very simple stamping, but it came out so pretty. So there is another sample. And then my final sample uses the cake celebration, birthday celebration stamps, and the beautiful designer series paper, the Wildflower Birthday Designer Series paper. Oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous. This is a piece of designer series paper that I simply stamped Happy Birthday in Blueberry Bushel. That's all I did, and then added some embellishments, but the paper already had all of the design. And then inside, look at this. This designer series paper is just gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. And I used the same pattern paper for the inside all the way through. And then there's all of these little accent elements that are included in the paper, already die cut, and you just punch them out. And so that's what I did with the cake and these flowers over here. And I just created lots of elements. And then also I die cut a little shape of gold vellum to kind of put behind the cake to kind of help the cake stand out a little bit. So, oh, and the dies come from stylish shapes. So as I was telling you, that coffin shape, that's the shape. So as long as your paper can pass through freely, you can use whatever shape you want. So there is number 3. And I added a piece of the Night of Navy ribbon because it went just perfectly with the rest of the paper. So there's your 3 samples. Let me know which one is your favorite. I'm not really sure which one I love the most. I think it's this one, but I'm really happy with all 3. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you don't already, so that you get a notification when you hit that bell of when my next video posts, which is typically on a Wednesday. I thank you so much for subscribing to my channel or stopping by to watch if you are just stopping by. I hope to see you again Wednesday, and I hope you get a chance to craft today. Don't forget, you can click on the link below to get all of the cutting and scoring instructions and a list of the products that I used on each of these cards. I will see you next week. Have a great week. Bye.